In the name of God, who calls us to embody the better angels of our nature. Amen. Please be seated. The date was Saturday, March 4th, 1865, when Abraham Lincoln took his second oath of office as President of the United States. 36 days after Lincoln's second inauguration, on April 9th, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered, and this was the end of the Civil War and the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia. Little did the country know that only 5 days later, on Good Friday, April 14th, 1865, Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, would have the tragic distinction of being the very first U.S. President to be assassinated. History tells us the American Civil War was fought primarily over the institution of slavery, and that this bloody and costly war that raged for 4 tumultuous years affected the lives of all people in the North and South. Over 600,000 people were killed over the course of the war, about 500 people every day. And cities, towns, homes, farmlands, forts, and factories were destroyed by both sides in the South and the North. Now, we also know through history that the violence, death, destruction, and the conclusion of the Civil War was decades in the making. It didn't spring up overnight. There were many all-encompassing differences. Yes, primarily the outright support or fierce opposition to slavery. But there were also economic practices, religious practices, education, cultural differences, and political differences which kept the North and South in constant conflict with one another. Gradually, throughout the first part of the 19th century, the North and South followed different paths and developed into 2 distinct and very different parts of the United States. Now, Abraham Lincoln had to navigate what was to become, what was going to happen, that the Union was ruptured. And his words at both his inaugural speeches reflect his cries for unity of all peoples, cries for unity to end hostilities and war. And I turned to his words this last week. In his first inaugural address on March 4th, 1861, he pleads with our fractured nation. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic cords of memory, stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone all over this broad land, will yet swell the chorus of the Union, when again touched as surely they will be by the better angels of our nature. And then again in his second inaugural address on March 4th, 1865, he echoes the sentiment of his first. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. You can tell I like Abraham Lincoln. My friends, I don't know about you, but today I hear Lincoln's words, his cries for unity, echo in this sacred place. our Church of the Ascension, about 163 years later. Look at the times we live in. I don't have to tell you. Look at the state of our nation. We maybe are the United States of America in name, but in reality, we are a divided people, a country almost split in half, as many rejoice in the election results, and just as many of us mourn them. And we have to remember, too, this division has been decades in the making, by all-encompassing difference when it comes to economic practices, religious practices, education, cultural differences, political differences, and immigration have been tearing at the seams of our unity for a long time. It is clear we are still a country who is exuding in many places, communities, and institutions fear. Fear which breeds hatred, violence, and a focus on all the things that divide us, rather than focusing on all that unites us. It is clear our country is still steeped in racism, sexism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, etc. I mean, one day after the election, disgraceful racist texts were sent to students, primarily those attending historic Black colleges. It is clear we can no longer claim as a whole that we emulate the prophetic words inscribed on our Statue of Liberty. Do you remember what they are? Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. It is clear many have forgotten who the poor are, like the widow in today's gospel who gave all she had to live on, a penny, to the temple. And we see these poor on our streets asking us for just a coin, just a couple of coins out of our abundance to help them get by. It is clear many have forgotten who the homeless are, the people from every walk of life that Ascension ministers to almost every Sunday of the month. It is clear many have forgotten who the food insecure are, like the woman, a widow, and her son from our reading from the first book of Kings. They are so hungry, they're starving, that they just wish they could die. It is clear many have forgotten who the tempest-tossed are. Some examples, the women who have no idea when their reproductive rights will be further eroded. They're like tempest-tossed, their emotions and fears. The migrant that never knows if he or she will be deported and be separated from their families and children. We need to reclaim these words of our Statue of Liberty. So you may say, where am I going with all of this? Well, it would be easy for all of us, including me, to be consumed by any and all of the external forces swirling around us. But I would like to propose something that may bring us some comfort, some relief, at least for now. Let us devote our energies as a faith community to look within, to look at who we are and who we choose to be. We are a welcoming community who embraces diversity of all kinds. We are justice-oriented. All are welcome, Black, white, biracial, Latino, Asian, and African, just to name a few. Old, young, married, single, male, female, gay, straight, transgender, and yes, Democrat, Republican, and independent. For God knows this Ascension community, and I will say the Episcopal Church at large, needs us to continue to be our best angels. I saw an example of our being our best angels last Wednesday during our noon service. It was a passing moment, but it moved me greatly. And some of you were here at the Wednesday service. While we were worshiping, and you may not have been able to see it because I could from up front, a young Latino couple came through the front doors. And Letitia greeted them warmly and invited them in. They wanted a place to silently pray. The woman started crying, and the man reached over to comfort her and grabbed a Kleenex off of the back table. And I don't know the feelings or the circumstances that this couple was in, but I was so glad they felt Ascension was a safe place to come. Now, I need to stress something else in terms of who we are. And I told my Wednesday folks this story. Years ago, when we were electing a new bishop in the diocese, one of the candidates was asked, do you truly welcome everybody, anyone, into the church? And he gave one of the best answers I ever heard. He said, of course, all are welcomed around the table that matters most, Christ's table. However, he said, anyone who comes in with the purpose of breaking apart the table and disrespecting any person who has gathered here together, this behavior will not be tolerated. And I agree with him. My friends, we are a community who exudes comfort, faith, hope, and love to the best of our ability. We're a community who strives to seek and serve Christ in all persons, respecting the dignity of every human being, as our baptismal vows call us. We're a community who wants to lift people up in liberty. And so this is my message to you today. We are not going to ever stop being this kind of faith community, even when the times we live in are difficult, uncertain, and discouraging. Not in my tenure. We will never stop being this kind of community. And we need to continue more than ever to do what is right and good and continue to finish the work we are engaged in, God's work, to ensure that Christ's table is never broken apart and remains a safe place where all are welcome to gather in a spirit of unity.